I'd just like to thank all of you for your presence here this evening. It is certainly gratifying to me and the rest of the committee to see you here in such great numbers. We certainly appreciate your presence here. We think this is a very special night, one that we think is very important. We hope that you feel the same. We'll be starting the proceedings very soon. We just wanted you to know that we love you and we care about you. The fact that you have come this far, taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here this evening, we certainly want to thank you. Now, that is not the official welcome, as great as it was. The official welcome will be given by this beautiful lady seated here, Sister Juanita Passmore. But that'll come very shortly. Dr. McSwain, it's a pleasure. And that'll come very shortly. But I just wanted to, those of you, I heard somebody hunch the other and said, who is that handsome guy with the brown suit? And I definitely wanted everybody to know who I was. That's my reason for being here. Thank you so much. I promised you the official welcome, and certainly I could think of none other to do that than our co-chairman of this most auspicious event, Sister Juanita Passmore. Let's give her a great round of applause as she comes.
It is a pleasure to welcome you this evening. Please open your hearts and your minds and your ears so that every word that the minister says, you're able to listen to and interpret with the plus signs that we're going to be talking about. There are young people in America who need to hear more of this. Some of the best programs that come out of this institution are never heard of in the paper. We want you to be billboards, to be spokesmen, to take back the words that you've heard tonight to others so that we can then recognize what we have in our midst and appreciate it. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Juanita. Another one of my great chairpersons, and I purposely asked that ladies be my chairperson. I want to be surrounded, Judge, by ladies at all times. 1992 was the year of the woman. I just think it's the year of the woman. 1993 will also be a greater year of the woman. And the applause was led by my pastor, Dr. Johnny Coleman. But certainly a co-chairperson who has worked tirelessly to make this a successful event is the president of the Chicago School Board, Ms. Florence Cox. Let's give her a great round of applause as she comes.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It is indeed a pleasure for me to be a part of this. When I assumed the position of president of the Chicago Board of Education, I assumed that position partly to continue doing what I've always done best, and that is to reach out to others in the community. The African proverb that it takes a whole village to raise a child is something that I first heard from my great-grandmother, who died about 30 years ago at age 82. And I truly believe in that. I think this is not something that we can do alone. We did not create these problems in isolation, and we cannot resolve them in isolation. And one of the things I want to stop is the killing that is going on in our community. The Nation of Islam has been very good at helping to curtail that, and some of the other social ills that now beset us. I reach out to them, and thus far, many have reached back. I will continue doing that, and I encourage you to do the same. Thank you for joining us. I look forward to a long-lasting partnership on behalf of the children.
Thank you very much, Florence. Certainly the best kept secret, I think, on the south side of Chicago is the Muhammad University. It is a school that a lot of my peers, cohorts are not even aware of its existence. It is the best kept secret because it's the best kept secret in the city or on the south side, we have brought this committee together to expose, really, this unique educational experience known as Muhammad's University to the broader community, south side, west side, north side, and even the east side. This school is so unique that we wanted to share it with you and then ask you to search your conscience to determine if it is worthy of your support. And to do that, to help you do that, I'd like to present to you the directress of the University of Muhammad's University of Islam, and that's none other than our own directress, Sister Shelmy Muhammad. Would you give her a great round of applause as she comes to us?
I bring you peace of Assalamu alaikum from the students and the staff of Muhammad University of Islam. Before I tell you a little bit about the university, I would like to inform you that we have been joined by the First Lady of the Nation of Islam, Sister Khadija Farrakhan. Muhammad University of Islam is a school that fosters the educational program of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The school was reopened in 1989 under the leadership of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. The school is a preschool through high school. We held our first high school graduation this past August of '92. All of the graduates except for 2 have gone on to college, and we are very proud of our institution. I just want to back up a little bit and say to you that one of the things that we need, a few of the things that we need in order to have an educational institution so that our children can learn and grow, is that the environment has to be safe. It is a drug-free environment. So these things are taken care of when the children walk in. But the other component that we work with very closely, and that is the parents of the children. So when we work with the teachers, the parents, and the students in a cooperative effort, you have a better understanding of what learning is all about. And also the parents get involved with their children's education. And I'm saying to you that in all school systems, wherever you look and see a school that is functioning, that is growing, that the school is prospering, the children are going in the direction in which we want them to go, there is a strong bond between the home and the school. We at Muhammad University of Islam, the children are no different. They came to us from the public school. I am a product of the Chicago public school system. What is different? One thing that is different is the desire and the commitment on the part of the staff, on the part of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, to let Muhammad University of Islam be a model. If that model is turning out students who can go on, who can work, who can do what they have to do without interruptions, without the distractions, then those children will do whatever it is that they need to do in life. It is also a school where we separate the brothers, the boys from the girls. The brothers and sisters do not attend classes together. We have a separate shift for the brothers in the morning and the sisters in the afternoon. Our school year is longer than the average school year. Our students begin school in September, and school is out in mid-August. So there is that time factor that you look at. They're not in school as long during the day, but they are in school longer during the school year, which more than makes up for what the state requires in terms of the number of hours that the child is in school. So I'm going to take my seat now, and I thank you for being here and listen to me to brag about our institution. Assalamu alaikum.
I wanted Sister Muhammad to brag just a little bit, and I'll just brag for her by saying that it's a very small school at this time, but we hope that it will expand and grow because of its uniqueness and the excellence that that is manifested by the staff and reflected by the children who attend there. Muhammad's University of Islam recently graduated 10 high school students, 5 of whom were honor students, and out of those 5, 4 were among who's who in American school system nationwide. 7 of the 10 graduates have gone on to college and universities. I think that's a great record. I think that's great, don't you, Edward Oliak? And we are still waiting for the minister who will be here very shortly. So what I would like to do then is I have a speech that I have written for the purpose of introducing the minister. And I don't know, is this an election year? Oh, we just had an election. Let me just say I had 3 speeches. Well, I think I might want to. But I'll allow you to vote on the speech that I should utilize tonight, Judge. Now, the first one that I had, and the one I'm really most interested in, introducing the minister, it's an hour-long speech. And I'm going to ask you to give me a vote on whether or not I should utilize this. Now, this speech is designed, before you thumbs down, this speech is designed to raise the hair on the back of your neck. It's so dynamic, Father. But it lasts an hour. So the second one, it's not as good as the first. However, it will inspire you somewhat, but it's only a half an hour long. The third, one that I know you won't consider, but it's only 30 seconds, and I wanted to was that a vote, or you were just... I'd like to, while we're waiting for the minister, and certainly, Sister Farrakhan, we're so happy to have you in attendance, I'd like to bring back my co-chair, Sister Juanita Passmore, who will introduce the members of our committee. Give her another hand.
I'm glad the chairman is here because I've had an operation on my eye and the lights are kind of bad and I can't see this listing. But it would be erroneous for us not to say thank you to the members of the committee who have worked very hard to help make this event a success.
That's right.
And let me say to you all, the committee, as I look at this distinguished audience, you did a marvelous job. Now, would you please?
Yes, ma'am.
And would you stand as your name is called?
The dynamic chairman is...
You.
Oh,
and
okay. Co-chair Juanita Passmore, co-chair Florence Cox. Would you come up, Florence, and just stand and join us here? Thank you. And you'll help me. Would you help me read the name? You're a school teacher.
You can't see Reverend Willie Barrow.
Absolutely, especially since I left my glasses, okay? All right, we have Reverend Willie Barrow. Prince Asiel Ben Israel,
And those who are represented, if they're not here, if their representative would stand. Thank you so much. And remain standing, please.
Blanton Kennedy, Mary D., Darrell Grissom, Hermine Hartman, Mel Hobson, Dr. Gloria Jackson Bacon, Dwayne Kiles, Cyrilla McSween, Deputy Commissioner Ella Muhammad, George O'Hare, Father Michael Flager, Barbara Proctor, Dr. Kitty Kidd Robinson, Honorable Eugene Sawyer, Reverend Heisel Taylor, Alderman Dorothy Tillman, Reverend Maxine Walker, Donald C. Walker, Willie Wilson, Reverend Dr. Eddie Wyatt.
Now, would you turn and would your audience give them a great round of applause? Turn around so they can see you. Thank you very much, Florence.
Thank you.
Thank you, Juanita, again. Our host here this evening, I would like for you to meet and greet him, and I'd like for him to have brief remarks. Keith is the president of the Executive House, CEO, Executive House, manager, but he is a great guy, and he has offered us these facilities for the purpose of supporting this great cause. Let's give a great round of applause to Keith Murphy.
Well, that was a very kind introduction and a promotion, so I appreciate that. My affiliation with Minister Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam was by virtue of our business association. Over the past 4 years, I've been enriched by the friendships gained and benefited from the mutual relationship of respect and sincerity. In August, I attended a dinner honoring the graduating class from Muhammad University of Islam. The significance of this event was emphasized by the appearance of prominent black business, political, and civic leaders. The Honorable Eugene Sawyer, Craig Hodges, Florence Cox, Alderman Alan Streeter, Dorothy Tillman, Juanita Passmore, and other active and highly respected citizens gathered to recognize the accomplishments of the students and endorse the efforts of Muhammad University. Actually, myself and I think Father Flagler were the only two white persons in that particular audience. That was about 1,200 people. So I can see that we're making marked improvement over time, Father. Leonard Farrakhan and Sister Claudette Johnson asked me at that time if I would help them reach out to the white civic and business community in Chicago to exchange ideas on alternative education and promote better race relations. Recognizing the urgency for better education and a spirit of understanding between the ethnic communities of Chicago, I agreed to help. The need to improve education and strengthen race relations is paramount on the agenda of all concerned citizens. Many of the most respected leaders in the black community believe Minister Farrakhan can help. Minister Farrakhan's message, as I understand it, is to enhance the black community by educating youths in disciplines of math and science. Our educational system as it currently exists is obviously ill-equipped to deal with the differences inherent to educating children suffering the perils of poverty, high crime areas, and fragmented family units. We have an obligation to explore new ideas and ideals in an effort to prepare these youths for the future. The necessity to embrace fundamental change in our approach to education is clearly in the best interest of the general public. My motivation is simply to have an opportunity to gain insight, initiate progress, and promote harmony. In short, I'm here to listen. I realize my personal background, being a white Catholic suburbanite of European descent, leaves me far removed from the desperate social problems afflicting our inner city. but I believe an innovative approach to education will be the foundation for raising the standard of living and elevating the social conditions in our impoverished communities. I'd like to thank Spencer Leak, Florence Cox, Juanita Passmore, and all the committee members. I consider it an honor to have gained their friendship. You give me hope for the future.
Thank you very much, Keith. And we certainly appreciate the beautiful hospitality that has been offered to us by the Executive House. Let's remember the Executive House when we think about very special occasions, hotels in the Loop. Let's think about this great house hosted by Keith. Let's give Keith another hand. Thank you. As I said before, the cards that you have, please use those cards during the minister's remarks for a question and answer session that Brother Leonard will moderate after the minister has concluded his remarks. So we invite you to really, be very candid. The minister will respond to the most candid of questions. And I think it'll be educational for all of us if you put some thought into those questions so that we can get a response that will help us all. I told Ty Wansley this on the radio one time that when I left the Cook County Jail as its director in 1990, we commissioned a study to determine what would be the population of the jail in the year 2010, 20 years from the date of this study, Alderman Tillman. And at the time that this study initiated, the population at the Cook County Jail was 8,500. The study concluded that the population of the jail in the year 2010 would be 16,500, meaning in 20 years the jail would double in its capacity. Now, to understand the magnitude of that, it takes about 150,000 young men and women coming into the jail annually in order to fill the jail with 8,500 inmates on a daily basis. In the year 2010, with 18,500 inmates in the jail on a daily basis, it will take 350,000 young men and women to come through the jail system in the year 2010 in order to justify 16,500 inmates in the jail. The median age at the Cook County Jail when the study initiated was 20. That was the median age of all of the young people there at the jail. The racial makeup of the jail at that time was 77% black, 15% white, and the other percentage was Hispanic and Orientals. In the year 2010, unfortunately, the racial makeup did not change significantly. However, let's focus in to really focus in on the perspective that brings us here this evening. Let us focus in on the median age. If the median age of those who will inhabit the jail in the year 2010 is 20, as it was in 1990, then those young people who will fill the jails of Cook County in the year 2010 were just being born when the study initiated. Now think about it. They are just being born, and yet we are commissioning a study as to where they will be housed 20 years hence. And so the question that I think should be on all of our minds tonight as we greet the minister, what are we going to do about these young people who are now 2 years old? 2 years old now. Minister Louis Farrakhan came to the Cook County Jail on my invitation on 2 occasions. When he came to our jail and spoke to the inmates there, the sheriff of Cook County, James O'Grady, was warned by possibly all of the members of the criminal justice system in Cook County that if Minister Farrakhan comes to the jail, there'll be a riot. No doubt about it, they will riot, they will tear the place up, he will inflame the inmates, they will riot, and you should have known better to put Spencer Leak out there in the jail. You know he's crazy. You know he's crazy. Minister Farrakhan came to our jail. And Minister Farrakhan came into the, and if you've ever been at the Cook County Jail, those of you who come those of you who come on Christmas, you know how the inmates or whatever. When Minister Farrakhan came into that jail, you could hear a pin drop. They were attentive, they listened, and they were educated like they have never been educated before. I invite you, the members of this audience, to be just as attentive. And I promise you that you will be educated like you've never been before. He is not that light, but he is certainly the best witness of the light that is the truth that will deal with the young people who are now 2 and who will be 20 in 2010. Let's hear it for Minister Louis Farrakhan.
In a Muslim's life, every important event is begun invoking the name of God and seeking the guidance and blessings of God upon what we attempt to do. Talking with you this evening is a very important event, and it should be attended by asking God's blessings upon what we say and His guidance on what we say, and the opening of the hearts of those to whom it is being said. And with all due respect, the only way the educational system can survive is that it must recognize Him who is the source of all knowledge. And when we close God out, there is no way that our system can survive. So I will start by saying, in the name of Allah, God, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the one to whom all praise and honor is due, I thank Him for Moses and the Torah, for Jesus and the Gospel, for Muhammad and the Quran. But if I lived to be a very, very old man, I could never thank God enough for blessing me to have met and been taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I greet all of you, my dear brothers and sisters, with the greeting words of peace. We say it in the Arabic language, Assalamu alaikum, which means, of course, in English, peace be unto you. This is a great honor to me. First, thanking the committee and Juanita Passmore, who really initiated this. and Mr. Keith Murphy, for allowing us the privilege of utilizing this facility. And really from the beginning, he too was instrumental, along with Sister Claudette Muhammad and Spencer and Leonard and all of those who served on this committee to make this evening possible. Words are inadequate to say thank you, but it's the best I can do. Thank you from the depth of our hearts. Sister Shelby Muhammad, the directress of the Muhammad University, and to the president of our school board, Ms. Florence Cox, and the distinguished list of dignitaries who are here tonight. The judge, the alderman, Father Flager, and my dear, 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 dear friend and builder, one that you are going to hear much, much about in education in the very, very near future. Our sister, Dr. Johnny Coleman, Dr. Heisel Taylor, Kitty Kit Robinson, oh gosh, George O'Hare, excuse me, George, Ty Wansley, and of course Dr. Fulton and Dr. Ted Kimbrough. What a wonderful audience. I think that I should begin, but I could stay here all night just thanking all of you, Mr. Briscoe, Cirillo McSween, well, you know, I'm getting up in age now, and, and I'm forgetting a little this and that. But let me get right to our point. Brothers and sisters, the country, this country, with all of its faults, is truly the greatest country on this earth. All her enemies, foreign enemies, do not have the power to harm her. God has seen fit that America has been a blessed area, for no bombs have ever fallen on an American city, and we have not seen in the streets of America what we saw in Mogadishu, in Baidoa, and Eritrea, and Ethiopia, and other parts of the world. Though America is great, she has some serious internal problems that can be the undoing of this nation, even as great nations before her fell not necessarily from outside forces, but from an internal rot and corruption. Yes. This country started right and wrong. The Constitution was a right document, but slavery was a wrong way to begin. The words of the Constitution make it the most magnificent political document ever written. And if one reads it, you might be tempted to say it was inspired by God. But the founding fathers had no vision of any black person becoming Secretary of State or Secretary of Commerce or Secretary of Housing or Vice President, certainly not President. The Founding Fathers' vision was narrowed to Caucasians and even narrower to those of certain quality. So when you set up government with the right words, based on the right principles but not the right practice, you have a nation growing and building in hypocrisy, so that the system ultimately breaks down because it cannot be this and that. It's going to be either this or that. The scripture says, can a fountain bring forth sweet and bitter water at the same time? So you can't be with God indivisible, with liberty and justice for some, and continue to be a great nation. So I never wrote a president a letter. I was moved to write President Clinton, because so much hope is from the people toward this man. And he is surrounded by forces that would hold him to old policies that have proved not in the best interest, certainly of black people, but not in the best interest of the nation in the long term. The leaders have led for the short term. They couldn't see the long term. And the terrible thing about power and wealth are corrupting influences that bring in its wake a pride and an arrogance that blind us to reality. So we are not able to even perceive the direction from which our destruction is coming. This is the sad and joyous state of America. She stands at the doorway of disaster and yet at the threshold of unlimited progress. It depends on who is going to guide the country and what kind of guidance will he give. Now, this group tonight is interested in education. Of course, Mr. Bush was to have been the education president, and you know what that ended up being. The educational system is a reflection of the hypocrisy of that which started when the republic started. You know, as black people, if you were not included in the beginning, it's rather cumbersome to include you late in the day. It's like a cook who is baking a cake and forgot the baking powder. She's not wise. She knows she has to start again, but she's too lazy to start again. So she puts the baking powder on top of the cake, thinking that that will solve the problem. Well, as black people and Hispanic people and Asians and Orientals, if we were not included in the mix in the beginning, it becomes difficult now that we are growing in numbers and growing in political power and growing in economic power, and most of all, growing in political and economic and spiritual maturity. To just throw us now on top of the cake. We have not been cooked into it. So either you're going to have to make another cake and start this thing again, all inclusive, and admit that we did the best we could under that, but now it demands something new. The time does not demand a hypocritical approach to solving the problem. The time demands sincere commitment to principles of truth and justice. And you know, those of us who feel harmed by what went on in the past, you would be surprised at how quickly the human spirit forgives when amendment and atonement and repentance is placed on the plate. His Holiness the Pope has asked Africa to forgive Europe. And soon he will come to America and possibly ask us to forgive. And certainly we are forgiving people, but how can we forgive when there's no repentance? And how can we forgive if there is no atonement for what went wrong in the beginning? You can't sweep that under the rug. And this is why there's so much rebellion in the schools, because the flood of information that is coming to the young minds have caused the minds to outgrow the methods that you learned in your methods courses. And it has caused the young mind to outdistance Freud and outdistance Jung and outdistance your best psychologists, because their knowledge of the human mind is outdated. So a whole revision has to take place. We're proud of the University of Islam, but the University of Islam was started as a protest against the killing fields of the public school. If you pardon me for being just plain old frank. I'm going to be that anyway. But to Dr. Kimbrough and my dear sister Florence Cox, and to all of the teachers who are present, the public school system was not designed to give black children, in particular, an education that will cause black people to be able to compete. We could not be as inferior as we are, generally speaking, if we had equal and quality education. You can never enslave a person who knows what you know. So the only way you can keep a slave is to feed him inferior knowledge, or feed him lies mixed with truth or falsehood and make him think he knows something. The degree on the wall says that you should be qualified to manifest off the wall in living reality what the paper on the wall says you have qualifications for. But if we have so many doctorates, so many masters, so many Bachelor of Science degrees, and we have no factories to employ our own children, we have no strong business community to keep the dollars flowing in our own community to build up our community. We're not expanding business. And we're not creating an environment in which business can even be started or grow. So our community is now turning in on itself. If we were properly educated, that could never happen. Jesus said, you can tell a tree by the fruit it bears. And you can tell a man by his works. Well, if you can tell a tree by the fruit it bears, you can tell the viability of an educational system by what it produces. Yes. All right. And if we are the products of an educational system, and we are not producing for our people what other ethnic and racial groups are producing for their people, then either the system has failed us or we have failed the system. And I don't know how you could charge the student with being a failure and you say you are the teacher. So, what we have proved, my dear brothers and sisters, in our visits to the public schools as well as to the jails, is that none of our people are really as bad as they seem. They just have not been reached where they are. And it is not their fault that they have not been reached. It is our lack of understanding and knowledge that we are not able to reach them with the out-of-date methods, the out-of-date information that we are giving to young people. So when we go to the school, we say a few words and we have their attention. They're not jumping about, raising sand. Discipline is not having a policeman in the school with a stick and a gun like he's dealing with wild animals. They look wild. But discipline is a proper understanding of the course that you are teaching and making it attractive to the mind of the listener. And when you put it there rightly, it grabs the mind and disciplines the hand. And they sit attentively and they listen. America has made many mistakes that we now have the opportunity, if she will let us, correct. And isn't it something that the children of slaves have solutions to the children of the slave master's problem? God works in mysterious ways, they say. But the truth of the matter is, all of you who have Bibles, whenever great nations and empires became problemed and they could not solve their problems, God put the solution in the head of one of his servants who came from among a people who were not respected. And if you're class conscious or race conscious or sex conscious, you might miss the answer to your problem. So if you were in Pharaoh's house, God didn't give the solution to Pharaoh. He gave it to one of the slaves, Moses. So Pharaoh had the hard duty of humbling himself to a slave. Well, that Pharaoh didn't make it. He did not make it. But there was another Pharaoh who came along later, who saw the other Pharaoh washed up on the beach. And he said, I'm not going that way. I had some troubling dreams. And I heard that one of the children of Israel answers dreams and tells the meaning of these things, and he's in jail. Go get him and bring him here to me. Now that was a wise Pharaoh. But God had to give him a certain quality of humility to hear a solution coming from a direction that we didn't expect it to come from. So it was in the days of, I think it was this great woman of the Bible, Queen Esther.
Yes, yes. Talk about it.
Ahasuerus, great king, had a wicked advisor
Oh, yeah. Sex.
who advised him to slay all the Jews. He wasn't going to kill one or two. He had in mind a genocidal plan.
That's right. Come on, bring the preacher.
But Queen Esther
Yeah, come on, tell
was given an answer.
it. Tell the story.
And she got to the king. And the king was not sexist. He said, oh, a woman's talking to me.
All right now.
I think I better hear what she has to say. And because he could hear a woman, as that Pharaoh could hear one of the children of Israel,
Yes.
that Pharaoh saved his house, and that king saved himself from doing a terrible thing. I think today, with all due respect and humility,
Go on, my brother.
America has got to learn to listen to women and listen to the oppressed.
All right.
Because out of the oppressed, God is going to bring solutions
All right.
to the problems.
All right.
Now let's deal with what education is supposed to be as opposed to what it is. The thing that separates man from beast is knowledge. The characteristic that brings us into the image of God is not the male or female persona,
All right.
but it is our growth into knowledge that separates us from the lower forms of life, which we are supposed to be their superior. We cannot be their superior without knowledge, and we cannot be the superior without cultivation. Education is to be cultivation.
Yes.
Cultivation of what? You say, well, we're here to cultivate the mind. No, not just the mind, because human beings are more than just mind. Their mind, their body, and their spirit. So true education cultivates the whole person.
Right. Right. Important teacher.
And since it is God who is the creator of the whole, and God is the creator of the house of knowledge into which we were birthed, called universe, then how could you leave him out?
Come on, teacher.
You say Mr. Newton was sitting under a tree that he didn't create, on some earth that he didn't create, sitting on his gluteus maximus that he didn't create, and an apple fell from a tree that he didn't create and hit him in his head that he didn't create,
Come on, teach now.
bearing witness to a law that was in existence before he came into existence. And then he studied that falling body and determined that a law existed. So we give him credit. Newton's law, not God's law that Newton found. You understand? So if we say a prayer in school, we are wrong.
That's right.
They're supposed to be the separation of church and state, but they open the Senate with a prayer. They open the House of Representatives with a prayer, but not the classroom.
Something wrong with that.
Something is very wrong, because every discipline that you study
That's right. Go on now.
God is at the root of that discipline. So if you cannot honor God, how can the children honor you? You are a teacher. You are an imperfect vessel, as I am.
All right.
And I'm a teacher. People stand when I come in the room. For what? What are you standing for? You're standing to show honor to a person who has either acquired something in life that is passing on that others are benefiting from. So we honor the person by standing for them. His honor, the judge comes in. We stand for him. He represents the law. He created nothing. But we can't stand if I'm Jewish and say a prayer to the Creator as I understand him. If I'm Catholic or Baptist or Hebrew or Muslim, let the children pray. And those who are taught by their parents that there is no God, then let them sit.
All right.
But God must be honored. And if God is not honored and respected, then your education is limited. Now, what kind of knowledge do you give to your students? At best, at best, it is inferior. Nothing that you know is absolute, because your study of every discipline is imperfect, incomplete. Even though you have a doctorate in that study, your knowledge of that discipline is inferior and incomplete. How do I know? By the world that your knowledge has produced. Your world is not equal to the universe. Talk to me. You had garbage on a barge floating from New York back down to New Orleans. You don't know how to dispose of your waste. But the mighty Creator has not misused one thing. Not a bird that falls to the ground, not a leaf that falls. He makes use of it again. He's a master economist. Why don't you let him help you balance your budget? Why don't you let him teach you how to manage your waste? He got a universe here for you to look at, and you would strain your eyes to find any crookedness in it. But you are the teacher now and have disrespected the source of knowledge. Then your knowledge that you have, that you pride yourself in, has all but made you a fool. Excuse me, I'm not being vulgar or disrespectful. But really, to see what is going on, your wisdom is being turned backwards right in front of your face. You can't use it to solve anything. The government is at its wit's end. Now, what are we going to do? Muhammad said, I cannot send my children to the public school and have them made into white people. What did you mean, Mr. Muhammad? Those who developed the philosophy that undergirds Western civilization base that on white supremacy. You cannot bring a black child into that kind of educational environment and produce a child that loves and respects itself. You produce a child that bows down to Caucasian people and looks at Caucasians as the God and worships Caucasian values as though God has sanctified it. I'm not saying that it's wrong to respect another human being, but it is totally inappropriate to worship another human being as though he is God, calling white folk the man, using the definite article, meaning that he's the example that we must pattern ourselves after. Wrong. God is the example that you pattern yourself after. And if the Caucasian patterns himself after God, then we can follow him. But he has not done it. And so we cannot follow that example, and we cannot permit our children to be destroyed with false knowledge that breeds in white children a superior attitude and an arrogance, and breeds in black children inferiority and an attitude that they cannot accomplish. This is why Malcolm X left school and went into criminal life, because there seems to be an attitude that we must spot young, brilliant black children and say a word here and a word there that kills their upward movement, particularly in the black male. This is very real. It happened to Malcolm, it happened to me, and I know it's happening to tens of thousands of young black children with brilliance. That there is a system in place to keep a plantation running. And the only way to destroy that is with a proper education, both for the white child as well as for the black child. There has to be a renewal. And we have to be willing to be renewed. And in the words of Jesus Christ, which I know our pastors in the audience are familiar with, the master said, "Behold, I make all things new." Well, you don't have to make all things new unless you recognize and are dissatisfied with what has been made. That's right. You make them new, you make them better. So Jesus said, except you become as a little child, you cannot see the kingdom of God. Well, the kingdom of God is not floating in the sky. He said the kingdom is within you. But you can't even see it and bring it out unless the heart undergoes a change, and there's humility here, and a teacher comes forward to share with you knowledge that will bring us out of the sick, racist, sexist, materialist condition that we are in. I didn't intend to make any lecture or anything like that tonight, just remarks. But my family, I am so honored just to be privileged to be in your presence, to be able to share this. Elijah Muhammad didn't mean harm to the society, but he saw the society harming his people.
That's right.
He knew at that time he had no power to change the public school, so the only thing he could do was extract his children from the public school to try to show you an example of what could be done with black people if you give them the right kind of knowledge. So we took them out of the public school and we put God in the university. And I know when Johnny Coleman raises her standard, God is going to be there. And God is going to be in Father Flager's school. God is going to be in Maxine's school. Why? Because God is the root of us. And we're not going to allow anybody to tell us that we can't pray.
All right. Come on.
Now, we took our children from there, recognizing that the education fosters this acquiescence to whites. It does not allow you to meet white people, and I mean no disrespect to any Caucasian present, but it doesn't allow us to meet you as an equal human being and talk to you from the level of our knowledge and experience without being overbearing. We come to you, you know, it has been the case. And with some of us, it still is. Yeah. I got to say so. Some of us, it still is like that. Some of us have gotten out of that. And when we get out of that and meet you and talk frankly to you, you say, that's an uppity, you know. And we got to put that so-and-so in his or her place. But wait a minute. See, you're not used to dealing with honest black people. This is why they talk about me so bad. I'm not a hater of anybody. I just love the truth. And I'm going to tell it. Wherever I am, I'm going to tell it. I'm not trying to curry favor with anybody but God. And then that frees me up. Because I know who I am and I know what I am. So I can read what the press has to say about me and I'm not affected by it. Because I know me. I'm not allowing the media to make me. It didn't say in the beginning, God said, let the media make man. No. So, dear family, Mr. Muhammad had to reverse the poison that is inherent in the educational system when you deprive white students of the knowledge that African civilization is the basis of European civilization. Why should that be a hard truth for you to tell? You know it in the lodge. You learn it in secret. Why can't you say it in the open? If the founding fathers of this great nation were high degree Masons and Shriners, well, we know what you know. And we know where you got it. So now you mean to tell me you know about who we are and you won't even tell us? You won't tell your own little children so that they could have a healthy regard for themselves and us. We already have a healthy respect for white people. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to say it tonight, and I may get in trouble. But I'm going to say this. This is to every Caucasian in this house. Do you know you have done a great thing for this earth? Because you have taught a sleeping humanity the reality of God. I'll say that again. You have done a great thing for humanity, for you have taught a sleeping humanity the reality of God. Sleeping humanity looks at the moon and writes songs about the moon. On a night by the silvery moon. But a wide awake man says, with higher mathematics, I can visit that planet.
All right. Come on, man.
White folks went out there. You can't say they didn't go. Every time that spaceship floats down to Earth, you're looking at something that higher mathematics and science produce. You can't laugh at that. You can't mock that accomplishment. White folks say, God, black folk in the church say, God, send down some rain. White folk go, I'm going to seed the clouds and produce some rain. White folk, I'm telling you the truth, black folks say, this is, God done produce a mighty tomato here. But it's kind of skimpy this year. White folks say, I'm going to improve on the tomato. I'm going in the laboratory with mathematics, with science. He's showing you that the realm of possibility for human beings is unlimited. You can do whatever you will. Man is God. I'm going to say it again. You may not like me for saying it, but find me some spook out there doing something for you. This whole thing is mathematics. And the more you know math and science, the more you can create. And your world will speak to your knowledge of mathematics and high science. So the Caucasian people have shown us the realm of possibility. Now we're in their colleges and universities trying to get some mathematics and science. They see we're coming fast. So some have decided to close the city colleges. Turn them into vocational schools. Can you imagine that? We're back on the plantation. Sam, learn how to plumb. Learn how to be a good carpenter, Joseph. Be a good brick mason. You all are getting too close to higher knowledge, and we know the more you lay your hand on higher knowledge, the more you'll be able to compete. And since your numbers are growing, if your knowledge grows with your numbers in the next 100 years, you'll be in power and we'll be out. We cannot have that. Close the school. Close Hale Franciscan. What is that, the name of it? Black, all male Catholic school. People on a waiting list trying to get in. Close it down. We don't have enough money. Cut back on classes. What you offer to the black students, mainly black and Hispanic, in the city college system. What are you doing this for? Because you see, it's not just money. It's fear of the rise of black people into knowledge. So Mr. Muhammad saw all of this, and he said the only way we can make it is with an independent school system. So he set up the university, and he produced some wonderful products. We reopened the university, but I recognize, as a student of his, what good does it do us to have a school on the south side with 300 or 400 students that we're trying to make better with the system of education that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad designed? And we got a public school with over 400,000, I think, students in there rottening. If we don't help the public school, then what are we sending the children of the private school out to meet in the environment? If they can't change the environment will change them. So it's no good just to glory in your little private school. We have to affect the totality of education. Does it make sense? Politics is too heavily involved. Because we have to make the children fight for the state. So we got to fix their minds. So we start them young. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Now you keep saying that. See? And the little children grow up, and then the rich can say, we got a problem in Iraq. We need you to go and solve that. Join the army. You become tools of the state, but never free, because your allegiance is to the wrong thing. You don't pledge allegiance to a flag, you pledge allegiance to God. And you work for your flag, but not pledge your all to that which is a symbol. But you do what you want to do. Today, knowledge is here. And we're going to have to train our children better. You pledge your allegiance to the sovereign of the universe who created you and the universe and everything that you have. Give him your allegiance, and when the state goes wrong, then you as a man can stand up and correct the state. But you are, listen to what I'm saying, you are paid by the state. You are bought by the state. You are run by the state. You are not free men and women because God is not at the center of your life. You work for money and not for the right things. You need to be remade all over again, but you got to be like a child and you're not willing. And as a result of that, you're on your way to disaster and taking a new generation that is cut off from the elders because the young don't want to hear anything that we have to say. They're disgusted with us because we have not done by them what elders should do. We have not built for them. We have not prepared a future for them. We buy our nice cars and our nice clothes and our parties and our nice times. But we have not passed on to the generations that are succeeding us a baton of life. We give them nothing, and we expect them to give us honor and respect. God has separated our children from us because a new teaching and a new education has to come. Even the young white children are denying their parents because your values have gone off. Your young children today, they don't want lies. They want something better. And if you are not prepared to give it to them, then this country, rather than having an outside force, will be faced with internal revolution and strife, management and labor, constantly in conflict, the poor against the rich, the white against the black against the Hispanic. We're all at odds with each other, and the only thing that can correct it is a proper, appropriate, timely education. I appeal to you as I sit down. And excuse me for raising my voice. I didn't mean any disrespect. You know. But I'm hurting inside, as I know you are, I believe you are, over what the future of our children is going to be. And there's enough power in this room to really make a difference. Not just for the Muhammad University. I appreciate the fact that these friends of Muhammad University would want to help raise money to see the university successful. Yes. But what are we going to do with the public schools?
That's the question. Come on, that's right.
We cannot let them die. That's where our children are. What are we going to do with politics that is corrupting education? What are we going to do with government that can find billions of dollars to bail out the savings and loan but can't find money for education? What are we going to do with a country that can give a man millions of dollars to throw a ball in a hoop and won't pay an educator, a scientist, a scholar, a decent salary? I saw on television a dog the other day, and they threw the ball at the dog, and the dog put it in the basket every time with his nose. I'm sure he'll be given a big salary to play with the Bulls. While they're cutting the salary of teachers. The teacher is the most important person in the society. But they don't feel like heroes. They're not made to feel good about themselves. Who is better for us than Mrs. Cox or Mr. Kimbrough? Who is better for us than those who educate our children? These are the people we should be carrying on our shoulders. The educators. We are letting them down. So as I conclude, I would say that what Elijah Muhammad taught us in separating the boys from the girls. Some would call that a sexist move. But in our holy book, the Quran, the teacher is the most important person in the society. But they don't feel like heroes. They're not made to feel good about themselves. Who is better for us than Mrs. Cox or Mr. Kimbrough? Who is better for us than those who educate our children? These are the people we should be carrying on our shoulders, the educators. We are letting them down. So as I conclude, I would say that what Elijah Muhammad taught us in separating the boys from the girls, some would call that a sexist move. But in our holy book, the Quran, it's talking about Mary, the mother of Jesus. And it talked about Zacharias and Elizabeth, and Mary was put in the care of Zacharias. And the Quran says when Mary's mother produced her, it says, and the female is not like the male. Well, why should the holy book waste time saying something that we all can see the female is not like the male? But it's deeper than that. Women are the most important element in your nation and your world, because it is through her that your world comes. This is why Elijah Muhammad says 75% of his work was with the woman, 25% with the man. You can't bring in a new world until you make a new woman. And you cannot make a new woman with inferior knowledge. You cannot deprive women of higher learning and produce a great nation. So your focus when you're dealing with women, you have to deal with her nature and train her up according to the nature that God gave her. I know this is a little difficult maybe for us to, not difficult for us to understand, but when I went to school, boys and girls didn't go to school together. That was 100 years ago. Back in Boston, Massachusetts, the boys went to one school, the girls went to another until we reached college. We even had separate high schools. The girl is not only the cornerstone of family, but when you teach a woman, you don't teach an individual. You teach a nation. So caring for the female and giving her a place that is like a sanctuary where she is free from being preyed upon, to rear her in the best manner and protect that sanctuary. You got sanctuaries for birds. You got seasons where you can't hunt certain animals. But it's open season on women all the time. And until the society recognizes the value of a woman, you're not properly educated. And you know the key is given right in the Bible and in the Quran. Mary was a woman chosen above all the women in the world to bring forth a child, a very special child that would be a savior. And there's not a woman with a womb who does not have that possibility of bringing forth a savior. Her womb, as well as her mind is the first womb. This womb is the second womb. And both wombs work together to produce a reflection of God. And that's why every intelligent, civilized man will fight to protect the female. Every civilized man, every civilized society will keep harmful influences away from the female. And every civilized society will teach the female how to protect that society by protecting herself from harmful influence. You are very valuable, sisters, women. And unfortunately, education has not given you or shown you your value. They have made you a piece of meat. But the book says, in Christ, there is no Jew, no Greek, no male, no female, no bond, no free. All are one in Christ. And if this country truly became Christian, the kingdom of God would start right here in America. That's what's facing us. Every nation, every kindred, every tongue is within the borders of that which is called the United States of America. If you could make them one from the many, you got the kingdom right here on earth. You can't do it with white supremacy. You can't do it with reverse racism. We can only do it with truth that takes white folk out of the realm of superiority and black folk out of the realm of inferiority and sets a new standard for superiority. And the new standard is duty to God and service to your fellow man. That should be the standard that makes one greater than another. And you know what? That has to start with education. And it's going to take courage to go into the public school system and say, Columbus discovered America for those of us of European descent. But evidently he didn't discover it because a lot of folk were here. He didn't discover it for them. But we didn't know it was here, and thank God he found it for us, and we came. And look what God blessed us to build here. You can put it in perspective, but you got to give credit where credit is due. If you got mathematics, where did you get it from? We can't take anything from you. You've done a great work with mathematics, but honor the Father. He gave it to you. Then give his little children a chance. Say, well, yes, black people did build great civilization. You have a great legacy to uphold. Why don't you wake up, stand up, clean up, and get busy, and let's build a new world? And you got black children standing up now. We don't need dope. I'm already high. That's why they seek drugs. We don't need drugs in the nation. You could put all the crack dealers out in front of the mosque, and they would go broke. We just have no need for that. We are high all the time. And we never come down. Education, knowledge makes you high. One of the attributes of God is the Most High. It ain't because he's using more than anybody else. Because he knows more. And the more we approach him with greater knowledge, the higher you go. So, my dear brothers and sisters, I thank you from the depth of my heart for allowing me these few minutes to talk with you. I pray that from this place tonight, we can go forward to help make not only the Muhammad University a better school, but West Side Prep with Marva Collins, and Shule Yawatoto with Hannibal Afrique. All the independent educators, we need to help them and encourage them and back them. And then we must not take so much pride in our little accomplishment that we lose the big picture of helping the total city to recover through the blessing of a better knowledge. I would personally offer myself to Dr. Kimbrough and to Mrs. Cox and to the city. I have pretty much stayed out of things and just worked with our community. But I think the time is so critical now that if you know something, step up and offer it. And I say this with the deepest humility. Whatever I have learned as a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I am anxious to share it. If my neighbor next door's house is on fire, I can sit in my house and say, well, it ain't mine. Let him fend for himself. But if a wind is coming up, blowing in the direction of my house, it might behoove me to get a bucket and help my neighbor put his fire out. It's a very base motivation. But you got to work from a base motivation until you are more highly motivated. But let's work to save what will destroy us if we don't clean it up. That's right. I offer us our help and service in any way we can. And I pray that God will allow me to come out of prison. Because I'm in jail in a very real sense without bars. But rhetoric and propaganda has put me in a jail. And when you go to jail, people don't come to see you. And they don't want to be associated with you because you're a felon or an ex-felon. And it's like wherever I go, they expect a storm, they expect bloodshed, he hates everybody. And when people think this way about you, it's like putting you in a prison. I hope that God will bless me to come out. And I can hear the bars open it. I can see the walls coming down because I think the Nation of Islam has something to offer. I want to close with this little point. During the presidential elections, every night we would look at the television and read certain polls. Judge Pincham and those who worked with this great brother of ours had to look at the polls. How are we doing in the polls? The polls were showing us whether we were weak here, strong there. Some people say they pay the polls no attention, but they say that. But they really pay those polls some attention. Now, I don't understand how they can take 1,500, 2,000 people and say it's scientific now, and pretty much with a fair degree of accuracy predict the outcome. Now, my point is that Brother Farrakhan has many more than 2,000 or 1,200 people with him. And if we could take persons that are the rejects of society and by God's grace clean them up take them off of welfare, and make them stand up on their feet. And if they don't find a job, create a job for themselves. And if we have a relatively crime-free community, you won't find anybody in our community smoking reefer, not openly. There may be one or two. Leave a little room for the backslider. If you can find a community that respects family and the institution of marriage, and you will not find a brother trying to get into his brother's home after his brother's wife or to violate the brother's daughter. You don't find cutting and shooting and whatnot in our community among this sampling. And we have those with doctorate degrees and those with no degrees. Those who have wealth and those who have none. But we have brought them together into a unity. Well, if we can do this for a few, what could this knowledge do for the many if the doors were open and the prison bars were taken from around the brother, that the brother could share what God has blessed him to learn from the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? That man was a brilliant man in your midst. We didn't understand him. But now I feel it's time to put the propaganda to the side and hear what the man has to say and weigh it with the intelligence that God has given you, then take it and run with it, and let's make a better society. May God bless you and bless us. May God bless Spencer and Juanita, Keith, and all of those on the committee. I thank you for what you are doing, what you propose to do to help the University of Islam. We're going to go back to the little University of Islam, and we're going to work to make it one of the finest institutions of its kind. We're going to try to make it a model. We have no such thing as envy, because there's room in education for everybody. And we want to encourage Dr. Johnny Coleman. Not only to build the finest building, but to build the finest institution that money and God's gift of knowledge to her can provide. And we want to back her in whatever way we can to bring that institution into reality. And then we must turn whatever knowledge we have and experience and sit down with Miss Florence Cox and Dr. Ted Kimbrough, Dr. Cox too, pardon me, and offer whatever we have to you. To the ministers and teachers in this audience, as a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, if you go look at the churches, you find the churches filled with old people, which says that the church is dying. You come to the mosque is filled with young people. You must, in the church, retrieve your youth, and you must retrieve the men. The church is filled with women, and the men are fleeing the church. And the hint is that the knowledge that you are presenting of Christ is not a balanced knowledge. You are talking Christ from the feminine side of his attributes: mercy, kindness, love, forgiveness. But you don't talk about the power of Jesus Christ. You understand? When God made man, the first thing he gave him was what? Power. And when you rob a man of his manhood, the first thing you take from him is power. And the only way you can make a man again, you got to represent God as power as well as mercy to balance that power. You understand? And then you have a house full of men and women running and working and fighting for noble principles to bring humanity to some level of sanity and civility. May God bless you all. Thank you so very much for your attention. Assalamu alaikum. I know. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give the Honorable Louis Farrakhan another round of applause for greater. What the committee has provided for is a period of question and answers, and you do have a 3x5 card, I believe, that many of you have recorded some of your questions. Could you please pass those up at this time?
Is there someone who would like to start with a question while they're passing it up?
I think, Hermine, would you like to start?
Sister asked me, how is my health? And as you probably know, about 2 years ago, I was diagnosed as having prostate cancer. And I didn't want to keep it a secret. I should have kept my mouth shut. But I guess I'm a messenger. I got to tell it. So, so I mentioned it, but I mentioned it only because I went into the mountains for a month to fast and pray. And then I went to Mexico to get some second opinions. And they couldn't find anything. And come to find out that in truth, I may never have had it at all. Because in the diagnosis that came back, that I happened to see as I was shredding some bills from the hospital, there was a diagnosis of, after I had paid them, of course. As I was shredding this document, I happened to open it, and the document was diagnosing the tissues from the biopsy. And it said benign prostatic hypertrophy, which meant that the prostate was enlarged, but it was not cancerous. So I think I'm really in the best health of my young years, and I would advise and urge and plead with all of you that are in leadership. Your people and our people really, really need you. And we die entirely too young. And the only way we can serve our people as we get older and wiser is to stay alive. And the only way we can stay alive is to watch what we eat, what we drink, and have a daily routine of exercise. I must tell you that I'm a young man, and I let my body actually go. And one of my sons came one day, and I was in the bathroom, and he looked at me and said, "Dad, you're becoming a pirate." I said, "What do you mean, son?" He said, "Look at that sunken chest." And I had two other sons that were encouraging me. And then I finally got started retrieving my own body. And it's a wonderful thing to see your own body come back to you. They say when you reach a certain age, you can't grow new muscle. I don't know about that. Because I'm growing new muscle. And not only growing new muscle, but new hair. And it ain't coming in black, gray, it's coming in black. I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you the truth. And I'm telling you again what the scripture says. Christ said he came that we may have life and have it more abundantly. And Isaiah the prophet said that a baby would die at 100. If you died at 100, you would be considered a baby. And I say to our judge, a man of this brilliance, we cannot afford to lose him. Tommy Briscoe, we cannot afford to lose Tommy. We cannot afford to lose Cyrilla McSween. These are giants, but as they grow older and more experienced, they're wiser. Dr. Taylor. So it behooves you to take a little time for you. If Harold had done that, we would have our brother probably with us today. And don't say God called him home. You just got careless and went home. Or somebody sent you. Because you were careless. Okay, here's some questions. Is a child or their family, does a child or their family have to be a Muslim in order to attend the university? No. We look at all of our people as Muslims. The word Muslim only means one who by nature is born of the righteous. And we don't care what your denomination is, we see you as born of the righteous, and therefore you, to us, are a Muslim. And that means one who's born to submit to the will of God. And all of us are born with that a capacity to submit to God. Reading the goals of the movement stated in the newspaper was the establishment of a separate state in territorial North America. We have witnessed the large-scale starvation in Africa among our brothers and sisters who have achieved territorial liberation. How do you propose economic empowerment and liberation strategies to prevent this future desperation involving starvation and anarchy, requiring Western, European, and American intervention to the rescue? No, that's a good question. Because what this is suggesting is that those of us who achieve territorial liberation have not achieved mental, spiritual, and economic liberation. As a result, the liberation movements in Africa and the Third World are pathetic because they're not truly liberated yet. Anytime you can go to Africa, brother, and find the image of the Queen on their money in a liberated country, and they have to send their test scores to England or France to be qualified, they are still under colonial domination. And anytime you see the effect of colonialism on the African mind, and then understand how the U.S. government policies affect the sincere effort of African and Third World leaders for the benefit of their people, this is what produces the starvation. You don't see the hidden hand behind all of the wickedness that's going on in Africa, but that hidden hand is coming right up out of Washington, D.C., manipulating the ignorance and the greed of Third World leaders and nations. I tell you, we are in for a big awakening. If Jesus said, and it's true, if you sow the wind, you reap the whirlwind. And you as a citizen do not know hardly anything of what your government that you elected has sown. But the only reason you have the standard of living that you have is because people all over the world are poor, raggedy, and hungry, and your standard of living is at their expense. Do you know that when oil is the #1 commodity in a country, and cocoa is the #1 commodity in another country, and sugar is the #1 commodity in that country, the Europeans who rule and sit on the commodities markets, they fix the price for what Ghanaians can get for their cocoa. And they don't get a decent price on the world market for what they produce, but for what America produces and Europe produces. They steal the raw materials from Africa for little or nothing, then manufacture it and then sell it back to them. Then Africa is in debt now to a Europe that raped Africa. That's why London can look so good, and Paris can look so good, and Brussels can look so good, and Germany can look so good, because you've sucked the blood of poor people, and you've systematically helped to create a desert and famine. Where did the people in Somalia get the weapons from? They're mostly American-made weapons. How did they get them? Because the former ruler, Siad Barre, leaned more towards socialism. And the government of the United States did not want him in power. And the CIA worked and sponsored people in the society. And they ran Siad Barre out, but all the little factions were not strong enough to come together to form a new government. So they began warring against each other with the guns provided by Russia and America. So much so till the farmers could not plant, and hunger came. And then the greed and lust in the human condition caused men to rob food, and people starved and died. Well, what would happen if you saw that in the streets of America? That may come. So, yes, the goal of the movement is to establish a separate territory if we can't get freedom, justice, and equality within this that is called America. We have no other alternative. That's how America became America. And that's what the, what is that? When in the course of human events? The preamble to the Constitution gives us the right to separate from this if it deprives us of the essentials of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And you cannot continue to have this few of us living well and the masses of our people suffering and think that we are providing a future for black people. We've got 30 to 40 million people that we have to provide a future for. We helped America build a future. Now, if America does not have us in her mind for the future, then let us know so we can say to Pharaoh like Moses said, let us go and give us a good send-off. Or include us with justice. That's right. Because we can't stay if the house will not treat us right. And just remember, we were in existence long before this. Before these people were thought. We had government, and we weren't starving and hungry. So you can make it. You can make it. It would be nice if we could make it work. But if we can't, we'll make it work for ourselves.
All right.
By the help of God. Many times in your speech you referred to Christ. How does Christ and his teaching fare in your life and your teaching? I'm a very perfect reflection of Jesus. When you're looking at me, you're looking at a reflection of the Christ you're talking about. No, 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 no. I'm not putting no roses on myself. And see, you don't suffer like me.
Come on, tell the story.
See, the book says, if you would be my disciple, you got to deny yourself, pick up your cross,
All right, come on, teach.
and follow me. You see, you're not on no cross. Every time you see me, you see them trying to nail me.
That's right.
What are they trying to nail me for? What have I done? I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't gamble, I don't run with women or men, I don't lie, cheat, or steal. What do they want me for? Because I teach the truth.
That's what it is.
No. And I'm in a modern Rome like Jesus was in ancient Rome. And as that Rome didn't dig that Jesus, this Rome don't seem to like this little one either. I'm proud to say I'm a follower of Christ.
Come on, tell us.
And that's why I catch hell. And anybody who truly follows Christ is not going to be the friend of the world. That's how I talk. See, a lot of people preach Jesus. He's a convenient commodity for good business. But to follow Jesus, nah, that's the thing.
That's the thing. Follow. Come on, teach.
To live a Christ-like life in the midst of all of this evil. I thank you for the question. And if you listen to what I teach and go run it through the Bible and lay it over the Gospels and lay it over the teachings of the apostles of Christ,
All right.
you find I'm right there, jam up 1,000%. And it goes right back to the other question about separation. See, Christ didn't teach integration. Did you know that? He said, be ye separate. He didn't want his followers mixing up with the wicked. He did not. No, sir. Cannot have fellowship with devils. Isn't that what he said? Oh, well, that's your book. Go read it. Now, if you're going to be righteous, what do you look like hanging out with the wicked? Well, he wasn't hanging out. Jesus was teaching. I don't hang out with the wicked. I teach. I'm right there. Are women being taught aspirations of strength and achievement as well as the males to succeed in corporate America and hold their own in any chosen field as well as men? Yes, ma'am. Women can do just about anything that a man can do. And in Islam, I heard the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said he wanted to see the sisters fly planes. He wanted to see them navigate ships. He wanted to see them as ambassadors. He wanted to see them in every field of human endeavor except fields that degrade them. I just don't like to see women modeling filth. Do you? I don't like to see a woman who's beautiful strip down
All right.
and come out and show us her wares. I don't mind her modeling something beautiful and righteous. But don't be a salesman for filth. We'll curtail that activity with women. Men too. You a singer? Sing. We don't want to see your bosom. We want to hear your voice. Sing. What's wrong with that? We don't want our women degraded. We're sick of this filth. And one day when we get strong enough, we'll stop it. We'll walk right into the performance and stop it. Because if my daughter is there, my wife is there, decent people are there, why should we have to pay to have people baptize us in filth and indecency? We don't want our women involved in that. And we don't want you involved in that. And out of self-respect, you shouldn't want to be looked at as a piece of meat. Should you? No. Make a man respect you. When he see you, let him see brain. You understand? Let him meet mind, not what rhymes. He said, this is the Nation of Islam, but a new Nation of Islam, Minister Farrakhan. How is the Nation of Islam new? Well, you know, every time you look on the television, they say new and improved tide. You never ask them, how is the tide new? How is the Colgate new? You know what I mean? How's the Cadillac you driving this year new? You understand? It shaped it a little different. They did a little things to it. Well, the Nation of Islam, under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, was nearly completely destroyed. When it changed direction, those of us who loved the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we could not abide by the slander of a man that cleaned us up and made us what we were. Some of us went back into the world, some of us went back to nothing. And you know that what the Muslims had in this city, hardly anybody had ever built anything like that. But all of that was gone. The beautiful newspaper plant that we had with a multi-million-dollar press sold to South Africa. Our lamb packing plant, gone. The tens of thousands of acres of farmland that we had, gone. The Constellation plane that we had, the jets that we had, gone. Supermarkets, bakeries, interstate trucking system, gone. Schools, 42 of them, closed. So we're starting again. That's why we call it new. It's really the same nation, same teaching. But those that are with me, these young men, they never met the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, never knew Malcolm. They never knew the old nation. They are new to this teaching. So that's why we say new, and I hope it's improved. I gratefully accept your offer to help and look forward to your counsel. Dr. Cox, thank you. I love you. Be right with you. How can we help you come out of prison? You did tonight. Just by being here, you helped me get out of jail. I mean, you see, many of you know Brother Farrakhan. And if you've been anywhere close to me, you know that you have never heard me say a hateful word against Jewish people. Here's my children, my son's not here tonight, but they grew up in my house. I would not allow my children to use the word spick or wop or kike, referring to any ethnic or racial group. You couldn't use that around me because I grew up going to white schools where they called me nigger in the class, sunshine, all kind of names, burrhead. That's right. So when I learned who I was, then no name anybody could call me could upset me. But at that time, it hurt. And I reared my children different. So I'm saying that to say that, you know, there are those who fear the loss of control over black people's minds. And what truth represents is what Jesus said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And there are people who don't want you free, so they'll fight anybody that will tell you some truth. That's independent of their control. And so because Farrakhan is not going to bow and scratch where he doesn't itch,
All right.
then they don't like the brother. So the propaganda is heavy. And you know, our chief of staff, we have contacted the leaders of the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith to sit down and talk with them. This has been our position since 1985, to sit down and discuss our differences. And ever since we said we would sit down, they rejected us in 85. They rejected us in 86. Ted Copper wanted me to come on television and argue with some Jewish leader on TV. I said, no, sir. I said, that's not good for black-Jewish relations. TV, you know, you got to show off for the TV. And I know you can't get me on TV and make no fool out of me. I'm saying this with humility. I know too much about your history. But that's not what it's all about. It's not all about you attacking me and me attacking you. It's about sitting down in a quiet place, ironing out our differences, and then coming before the television and say, we found a solution to the problem. That's the way you use television. These foolish kind of TV shows that we see all the time, they aid and help nothing. They solve no problems. And so I refuse to be a part of that. But your presence tonight, and hopefully the more relationship that we have, the more I come out and speak and meet people, and people get to know me and know us better, they'll know that I'm not what people think I am. I had two rabbis at my table, and I invited the rabbis, this is the truth, to come to the opening and dedication of Mosque Mariam. And they refused. They said, no, we can't come. It would send an improper signal. Okay. We had another meeting, and one rabbi asked me, if I could arrange for you to come before the board of rabbis, would you come? I said, if you can arrange it tomorrow, I will come. And the other rabbi said, if I asked and invited you to speak at the synagogue, would you come? I said, tonight, if you could arrange it. And because I was so anxious, they never arranged it. So, you know, I'm very serious about what I'm saying, you know. Some of our Jewish friends say that, Farrakhan, until you apologize, we won't sit down and talk. I said, well, we'll never sit down and talk. Because if I don't think I have anything to apologize for, I'm not going to apologize. See, but some of them want to manipulate and make you bend and bow. You don't have that kind of power with me. You don't have no power with me to make me bow now. That just is not going to happen, not in this lifetime. Or the next one either. That's why I'm so glad I'm a free black man, supported by black people. I ain't got to beg nobody for nothing. So I can talk like a man. I like that. And I want every black man to be free like that. What do you think that we can do for these brothers who attend good schools but have lost their identity? Well, the Jewish people may send their children to the public school, but when they leave that public school, they have a shula, someplace for them to go and learn about their culture so that they don't lose their identity. If we've got to go in a public school where they're not going to teach us the knowledge of ourselves, then we should open our churches. That after school, the children will come to the church for history classes where they learn something good about themselves. This is a way to bring the youth back to the church. Get them into the knowledge of self, and I promise you that when you teach black children the great history of black people, You will see a change in their walk, a change in their talk, a change in their step, because they know they are from something, going somewhere with direction. Thank you. 2 more, 3 more questions, that's it. I'm fine. How should the black community respond to the president of the county board's decree to double the number of abortions at Cook County Hospital? Well, you know, I know that many of the women in the audience are pro-life and many are pro-choice. I'm both. I'm pro-life and I'm pro-choice. Now that may sound political. But I am pro-choice in that you choose who you're going to sleep with, so you don't regret having life from that one that you slept with. But I am not for any woman or man having the luxury of pleasure without responsibility, and to kill the fruit of your womb, not understanding that what you're producing is the answer to your own prayers and the prayers of your grandmother and your great-grandmother. You do not know what you're carrying. There was a young girl, she was 15 years old, she came up pregnant. Her father came to me, he was upset because he had taught his daughter all of these moral principles and whatnot, and she violated, he was out of his mind. I said, brother, embrace your daughter and embrace what is in her womb. Some say, well, she's only 15. You must, have an abortion. I said, she laid down. She got to learn the responsibility of her actions. Now, have the child. They had the child. The child is more than a genius. The grandfather was walking with the little girl. She was 2.5, going toward 3, and she was reading signs. And he was wondering, child, the girl can read. The girl is a genius. You don't know what your womb holds. That's why I was telling you earlier, you're too precious. And that's why you shouldn't lay down with just anybody. I'm just telling you straight up, don't let biological need force you to do things that you regret. No. Now what about the rapist? I couldn't allow the child of a rapist to come in. What about a father taking off his daughter? No. Well, that's abortion. It's justified. You know, when a woman has to be forced to yield herself to one of criminal intent, you know, the sperm is generated by what's in the mind of the owner of that sperm. We don't know enough about human nature to really understand why we're producing all this criminal stuff. That's the product of the parents and the society. You don't even realize that by killing the fruit of your womb, now I don't want nobody going off on no guilt trip now. Whatever you've done in the past, believe me, God will forgive you for that. So let's forget that now, okay? Don't get in no guilt trip, because that's not what I'm about. If you've had an abortion, you get the feeling, oh, you talk about me. No, 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 no. Because in my days of ignorance, we had one too. So I'm putting myself right out there with you. So I'm not trying to throw down on nobody or make anybody feel bad. But when you know better, you should do better. You understand? Yes. I just will close with that point on your mind. My mother did not want me. May God bless her. What a wonderful woman. But I was a child of a bad circumstance. And she was trying to run from the circumstance. And the only way she could run from the circumstance is kill what was in the womb. And in those days, they didn't have a Cook County hospital where you had the president of the county board saying double the number of abortions. They used hangers in those days and all kinds of crazy stuff. And my mother tried to abort me 3 times. And it didn't happen. And she finally decided, let it be. But the effect of her thinking is on me. You see, when you think to kill, you produce after your thoughts. You don't think it's killing because it's in a doctor's office and it's all right by law. But there's some things that the law says is all right that God's law says is not. And that's why the supreme law has to always be taught by spiritual people. You are producing killers because you yourself are a silent killer. Because the circumstance isn't right. No, I got to get my education on it. I can't, this ain't from, I got to, oh no, I'm killing this thing. Now, you produce a child. He's robbing a store. He got a ski mask on. Somebody pulled the mask off. They seen him. I got to kill him. Now, circumstances. I got to get rid of all evidence. Boom, 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 boom. And you sit back in judgment. You're going to be on the jury. Sentencing that one to death. But who will sentence you? You produced it. You're a silent killer. In sanctified, purified Cook County abortion clinics. I don't know what we can do against that, but educate the people and let the people choose what kind of life you want to live. That's all I can do is teach. And if I've said anything, and a sister's in here tonight pregnant and afraid, go on and have your baby. You'll be surprised what God is going to bless you with. And when my mother was on her deathbed, the Sunday before she died, I was on my way to the mosque, and I went into her room, and she called me to her bed, and she cradled her stomach, and she said, "Son, I thank God for what He allowed my womb to produce." And she said she prayed that God would forgive her for even trying to kill such precious child. She knows he's precious now, but when he's interfering with her plans, it ain't precious at all, because you don't value what's in that womb. That's a sacred house, more sacred than any church, synagogue, or mosque. Your womb is a sacred place where you and God operate to produce what you see walking the street. And only you, mother again with God, can change the reality of what you see on those streets. That's your product. Those hard teenagers that are killers now. They're filling the jails, as brother said in introducing me. But they're yours because they had no real parenting. Society told you, take them off the breast. Give them Similac. Give them Infamil. But there is no Similac or no Infamil that can assimilate or equate itself with what comes from God's nursing station. You are so powerful, women. You just don't know who you are. The power of your mind energizes your milk. You didn't know that. If you are terrified, it creates a chemical reaction that your baby will suck from your breast. But if you're a God-fearing, righteous woman with high principle, you will instill that right in your baby through the milk to take the child away from a mother and that breast and give it some cold, impersonal bottle. You're making the child cold. But when that child can nurse from your breast and put the hand on your breast and feel the warmth of its mother, it is bonding to flesh, to blood, not plastic. And so when it grows, it's bonded to street, to television, to a material thing that has no life in it. And that's why your children can take life so easily. Two young men on the north side running down a 50-year-old woman trying to jog, trying to rob her and then just stab her. I mean, what is in your heart? What is in your mind that allows you to do things like that? Just walk up to somebody and jack them up and take their car and kill them. They didn't do anything. We breeded killers because since Roe versus Webb, you've had pro-choice, and you chose to kill life, and you've produced a nation of little killers. And that's why your children are just killing their parents and doing all kinds of acts that children never did before because the law permitted it. One last question. God bless us to understand better and do better. If we as teachers could teach our people the science of fasting and how fasting will get you the discipline to discipline your body and all your drives, where you can turn away from sex, turn away from the finest woman and say, no, that's not right. Turn away from that most handsome man. Baby, that's not here. You want to learn how to fast? You take that fast and go about your business, brother. What are your feelings? This is the last question. What are your feelings on the portrayal of the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad by Spike Lee in his latest movie, Malcolm X? That's the last one. I'll just say this. I enjoyed the movie. I saw the movie, and there were a lot of negatives in the movie that if I only looked at the small picture, meaning that portrayal of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam, it was negative. It was negative. But when I look at the bigger picture, the movie is a plus. The motive behind the movie, I'd like to deal with at another time. The money behind the movie, I'd like to deal with at another time. The plot behind the movie, I'd like to deal with at another time. And the failure of all of it to accomplish the results, I'd like to deal with it at another time. They intended something terrible to happen behind that. I'll just drop this on you and you think about it. They've never made a feature-length movie on no black scientist, scholar, historian, or contributor to advancement of our people till the movie Malcolm X. Right now in Hollywood, that brother that constantly goes around playing Frederick Douglass, call his name? William Marshall. William Marshall. William Marshall, with a gorgeous voice and magnificent presence, We were together in Jamaica in 1974, and he had the script of a man named Christophe, who was with Dessalines and Toussaint Louverture in the great battle where they conquered the forces of Napoleon. And he tried to get every Hollywood studio, producer, people to back the production of that movie. They would not produce a movie that would glorify a black man who defeated the greatest army in the world, the army of Napoleon. They wouldn't do it. They never showed a movie on Marcus Garvey. And they never think to make a movie on W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T, George Washington Carver. None of those who made a contribution. Why Malcolm? Why at this time and why Malcolm? They had a reason. You went to see a movie, but did you pick up on the reason? Did you understand the motive? Because it's not what people do, it's why they do what they do that you got to dig under to understand so you don't get manipulated in the process. It's all about winning minds and directing minds toward an objective. And they failed. No weapon formed against the righteous will prosper. But on our Savior's Day, which God willing, on February the 21st, we'll be at the UIC Pavilion. Last year and the year before, we were blessed to be with Dr. Johnny Coleman at Christ Universal Temple, and we had to turn several thousand persons away. And so this year, we tried to get the Chicago Stadium, but they wouldn't allow us to use it. It's unfortunate. But we should have talked to our alderman. Exactly. Well, that won't happen again, alderman, judge. But, you know, all over the country, there are places where they just don't want Farrakhan to speak. And it's true. Well, we won't get into that now, but that's what I'm talking about, that prison situation, you know. But we are at the UIC Pavilion, and the subject matter deals with the experts. The experts have all spoken. And now, on that day, I would really like to give to the public the Nation of Islam's perspective. And the reason I think it's necessary is because, you know, we are charged with murder, not from a court of law, but from a movie that wants to make our people the judge, the jury, and the executioner. The evil intentions that were behind the movie and behind all the propaganda that followed the movie to kill not only the nation, but to kill Malcolm again. This is some serious stuff that went on, and I hope it didn't go above your head, but if it did, it didn't get too far above ours, and we'd like to share with you what we saw. That's why I didn't really want to get into that tonight. But at the UIC, I would like to present to the world the Nation of Islam's perspective. And after you hear our perspective, which is a valid perspective, because you can't make a judgment just going to a movie by Spike Lee, who never really walked with Malcolm. He didn't know Malcolm. He didn't know Malcolm. But we knew him. I personally was taught by Malcolm. I worked with Malcolm for 10 years. I'm not saying I'm no expert on Malcolm, but I do know the brother a lot better than most. And I know the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. a lot better than most, and was a member of the nation at the time of Malcolm. So we have a point of view that I think should be heard. If you're going to make a judgment, give us a chance to have a fair hearing in that court. And then you determine for yourself whether we are guilty or innocent. But that movie was designed not for the dead, but it was designed to destroy something coming up among the living. And the wise among you know it. And even those who were not sophisticated, they sat in the movie. Something is not right here. Even to show Malcolm's going toward Orthodox Islam, they didn't give Orthodox Islam a decent hearing, nor did they give the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad a decent hearing. They spent more time on Malcolm's pre-life. So you gotta look at this thing. But overall, great movie. I mean, I would rate it great, and I thank God for Spike. I wrote Spike a letter, I never sent it, but I'm gonna send it. Spike was born to do this thing. Spike is a very unique human being, gifted. And I'll tell you, I believe that when the history of Islam is written in America, the point where there was a turning point in the upswing of people coming to Islam, they will have to go back to Spike Lee and that movie. So I don't care how negative the intention is, God's hand is on us all, and believe me, good will come out of everything. Even if there is evil behind it, God will turn it into something good for his people. I want to thank tonight and recognize Mr. and Mrs. Alauddin Shabazz. Are they still here?
Yeah,
Dr. Constance Shabazz and her husband. How are you, my brother? It's good to see you both. Wa alaikum salam. Dr. Neva Lubin. Where's Dr. Lubin?
Yeah.
In the back? Oh, she's by the light. That's right. You're in the light, sister. It's good to see you. Thank you for coming. Dr. Javed Orgain. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Javed. Thank you. It's an honor to see you again. Dr. Alvenia Fulton. This is the ageless wonder of our community. I mean, she just don't age. Y'all want to know how to stay here long, please go see Dr. Fulton. Brother Tommy Brewer.
Yeah.
Where's Tommy? He left? Where's Nikki Zala? She just left? I didn't get a chance to shake her hand. Ted Kimbrough is here.
Yes.
Mr. Frank Bacon. Dr. Gloria Jackson Bacon, I know they left. They're here?
They're here. Frank is sick too. Frank is sick.
Brother, good to see you. And pray for a speedy, complete recovery, man. It's great. And Dr. Jackson Bacon, did you hear her sing? Well, you missed the concert if you weren't there. I hope you're still doing it. I hope to join you soon. March 28th, where? Thank you. I'll get my tickets. Representative Monique Davis. There she is. Thank you, Monique. It's a pleasure to see you. Blanton Kennedy, the great one. How are you, my brother? Darrell Grisham.
Yeah, the giant.
The giant. How are you, sir? Cirillo McSween. That's him, brother. Let's say it for him. Robert Dale. Pleased to see you, brother. Thank you. The Reverend Maxine Walker. And my dear friend, the Reverend Mitty Collier. Well, and Senator Don Trotter. Senator? Had to leave. Well, it's been a long evening. I guess we're long past the time. Where's Attorney Lou Myers?
All of them do cannibals.
Lou, in the light. Good to see you, brother. Judge Ellis Reed? Judge? Where's the judge?
He just used to work for the
Brother Keith Hobbs? Ernie Jenkins? All right. Judge R. Eugene Pincham and Commissioner Michael Scott?
Yeah, he was here.
Alderman Dorothy Tillman? Roderick, that's your daughter? How are you, sweetheart? Well, if you're like your mother, sweetheart, we got a warrior in you. Take very good care of her.
That's my baby.
Yeah. Where's Roderick Sawyer, son of our Mayor Eugene Sawyer? Pleasure, brother. Give your father our love, and the one and only Ty Wansley. The great and wonderful, a man for all seasons, who really is concerned about our people, the Reverend Dr. Heisel Taylor. And Dr. Wayne Watson of the City Colleges. Doctor, thank you. Okay. So I thank you. And
Minister, you had Alderman Buchanan from the 10th Ward here earlier. He's gone. He was sitting there.
I wanted to.
Alderman Buchanan, he's one of our Caucasian aldermen. He was here from the 10th
Thank
Ward. He left with the prop.
And we met former City Councilman Ed Badoliak on the way out.
Yeah, we met on the way in here.
Yeah. I hope that's not what sent him out. But may God bless you all, and thank you so much for this evening. Assalamu alaikum.
There will be a receiving line, but if you hold your places. But first of all, I'd like to recognize a contribution to my